Mom said to leave. Can you let us stay just for tonight?
Late at night, my 9-year-old grandson suddenly visited us. I rushed to open the door, and found him in bare feet, with blood oozing from his toes. Moreover, he was tightly holding the hand of his 4-year-old sister, tears streaming down her face. "Did you two really walk here all by yourselves?" They nodded, and I hurriedly let them into the house. However, when my husband woke up, he was furious.
Absolutely not.
The terrifying expression on his face made the grandchildren burst into tears, leaving me bewildered. They should have been allowed to stay for just one night. After that, I couldn't believe my eyes at the action my husband took. I'm Margaret, a 63-year-old homemaker living with my husband Patrick, who is 2 years older. He worked as a high school teacher until he retired at 60. Our 2 children were married and independent. Our daughter Laura lived in a nearby apartment, and our son Richard lived in the neighboring town. Victoria, the wife of our eldest son, is stunningly beautiful with translucent white skin, and even women would flutter if she looked at them with those big eyes. She was an ideal daughter-in-law as long as she remained silent. However, she had an incredibly bad mouth.
Everyone wonders why a woman of my caliber would marry a man like him.
Huh? Are you saying Richard isn't up to your standard?
Well, he works for a top-tier company and earns a decent income, but let's be honest, he's not that good-looking. But I'm not that picky, so he's lucky, I guess.
I couldn't help but feel very angry when she spoke ill of my own son. Who do you think you are? I wanted to say, but I held my tongue because I didn't want to argue. However, my husband couldn't stay silent.
Richard sure married quite an impressive wife, didn't he?
Despite the sarcastic remark, Victoria seemed unfazed and even smirked dismissively. Richard, in response, could only manage a wry smile.
Victoria is too good for me.
Seeing this, I imagined that my kind-hearted son must be facing some challenges in his marriage. However, despite their differences, they had a child together. Daniel, our first grandchild, strongly resembled his mother with a remarkably beautiful face. Personality-wise, he took after Richard, being very kind, a perfect blend of his parents' best qualities. I looked forward to Richard occasionally bringing Daniel over to our house. Victoria rarely visited, but I thought it might be the best for both of us. Then, we also welcomed a granddaughter, Emily, born 5 years after Daniel. She was an adorable girl with fair skin, chubby cheeks, and round eyes. However, when I visited my son's home to celebrate her birth, Victoria disdainfully glared at the newborn.
Daniel takes after me and is beautiful, but why is this one so chubby and ugly? Who does she even resemble? She's not cute at all.
You're a mother. Don't say such a thing. She's perfectly cute just as she is.
I can say whatever I want to my own child. Are you trying to start trouble with me? Well, I won't lose to an old hag like you.
As my husband heard this exchange beside me, his expression quickly changed. I could tell he was about to shout in my defense, so I hurriedly intervened. Instead, it was our son who raised his voice in anger.
Victoria, enough. Mom and Dad came here to celebrate. There's a limit to how rude you can be.
Oh, how unusual for you to stand up to me. Quite interesting.
She glared sharply at Richard, seeming ready to strike, so I quickly relented. I'm sorry. Victoria, you've just given birth and it's a stressful time. I shouldn't have said that. I apologize. Please forgive me.
Humph. Exactly. You shouldn't have said anything. You could have just sent a money gift instead of coming all the way here.
Victoria's demeanor was consistently lacking in manners, but I couldn't say anything further. Because of incidents like these, we grew distant afterward. However, despite this, Richard continued to bring Daniel and Emily over to us regularly. It made us happy to see our adorable grandchildren, but there were still some concerns on my mind. Daniel was bright and talkative, but Emily, even at the ages of 3 and 4, showed hardly any signs of speaking. Furthermore, her fair skin had turned extremely dark from sunburn, and her hands were rough and dry. When I asked Richard about it,
Victoria said Emily loved playing in the garden.
That said, the condition of our granddaughter's skin was extremely concerning. One day, our family was struck by tragedy. My son Richard suddenly passed away. He fell from the stairs of a pedestrian bridge during his commute and was transported by ambulance. After being transported to the hospital, he received intensive treatment, but unfortunately, he didn't make it. I was in such shock that I couldn't even stand up. Richard, you poor thing. It must have been painful.
Daddy, Daddy. What's wrong? Wake up. Wake up.
Daniel cried uncontrollably, while Emily remained expressionless, biting her lip. Victoria, without shedding a tear, continued to fiddle with her phone. Looking back now, it was indeed a peculiar scene, but at that moment, I was overwhelmed with grief and unable to pay attention to anything else. My husband received our son's old and worn-out bag from the paramedics, found beneath the pedestrian bridge. It was a bag I had bought for him when he started working. He's been saving and working hard for the family. Thinking this made everything even harder to bear. The wake and funeral were mainly organized by our daughter's husband and were carried out smoothly. I spent the time in a daze at home. It was the day after the funeral. In the middle of the night, the intercom rang. Wondering what was happening, I looked at the camera and saw Daniel's face, biting his lips. I hurriedly opened the door and let him in. Holding back his tears, Daniel managed to speak in a strained voice.
Mom told us to leave. Can you let us stay just for tonight?
My grandson was barefoot, and there was blood oozing from his toes. Did you two walk here all by yourselves? The grandchildren nodded, but it was a 10-minute drive from the neighboring town. While 9-year-old Daniel might manage to walk, Emily was only 4 years old. Besides, it was the middle of the night. They must have been terrified. When I let them into the living room, my husband had also awakened, so I consulted him about Daniel's request to stay just for the night.
Grandpa, we'll leave tomorrow, please.
Absolutely not.
Upon seeing my husband's furrowed brow and fearful expression, the grandchildren burst into tears, and I was wide-eyed with surprise. Can't we at least let them stay for one night? I began to plead, but my husband hugged the grandchildren tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. Even during our son's funeral, he held back tears. We've been married for 30 years, yet this was the first time I had seen my husband cry like this.
Don't say just for today. Stay here forever. Poor you.
I realized his feelings with those words, and I couldn't stop crying. Later, I asked the grandchildren what had happened, and what they shared was shocking. Victoria, who was supposed to be a homemaker, was often out during the day, leaving the children at home alone. Even when she was home, she would frequently scold and roughly push Emily around for various reasons. As a result, whenever Emily cried, Victoria would shout angrily,
Shut up. Be quiet. You're annoying.
Over time, Emily learned to cry silently without making a sound. Daniel reportedly got scolded too when he tried to defend his younger sister because he felt sorry for Emily. While he could escape from his mother's behavior by going to school, Emily, who wasn't allowed to attend kindergarten, didn't have that option. Apparently, while her mother was around, Emily would go outside to weed the garden every day. This was her way to avoid being scolded and perhaps earn some praise from Victoria. This explains why her skin was deeply tanned and her hands were rough. Emily's inability to speak might stem from a fear of being scolded. Thinking about this filled me with a sense of helplessness. That evening, Victoria apparently told them that guests were coming and ordered them to go outside. Daniel managed to put on his shoes, but Emily couldn't make it in time and was left barefoot. Victoria quickly locked the front door behind them, so Daniel then put his shoes on Emily's feet and held her hand as they walked to our house to seek help. What a terrible thing to do. Unbelievable. I tried calling my daughter-in-law several times, but couldn't reach her. It was late at night, so I decided to sleep with my grandchildren that night. However, early in the morning, Daniel woke me up.
Grandma, I'm sorry for waking you up. Emily said she saw Dad in her dream.
Huh? Did she? And then?
Dad told Emily to look inside the bag.
I was taken aback by what he said, but looking at Daniel's serious expression, I started to wonder if there was something more to it. Then I woke up my husband and told him what Daniel had said. Still groggy, my husband was skeptical at first, but when he checked our son's bag, he exclaimed in surprise.
No way. This is outrageous.
I can't forgive this. Filled with anger, we decided to take action. Afterward, we quickly called our eldest daughter, Laura, who lives nearby, and asked her to come to our home to take care of the grandchildren. Meanwhile, my husband and I rushed to our son's house and rang the doorbell repeatedly, but no one answered. But we continued to ring the doorbell persistently. My daughter-in-law finally appeared in her pajamas, with the collar open and looking disheveled.
Geez, so noisy. Who the hell is it?
At that moment, I caught a fleeting glimpse of a young man with brown hair crossing in the back of the room, completely naked. I knew it. However, as soon as my daughter-in-law realized it was us, she widened her eyes and quickly shut the door.
It's so rude of you to come here suddenly. Go home.
From behind the door, my daughter-in-law shouted aggressively. We have something urgent to discuss. Please open the door.
I said I can't open it right now.
I reluctantly opened the door with the key I found in my son's bag, and inside, the young man from earlier exclaimed, "Oh no! Run!" He hurriedly dressed and fled from the house. At the entrance, she stood defiantly, glaring at me and my husband without a trace of remorse.
What the heck are you doing here?
Before anything else, are you already cheating on your husband the day after he passed away?
Don't be ridiculous. Oh, he's just a gas repairman.
Huh, so gas repairmen these days work without clothes on? Victoria noticed my sarcasm and clicked her tongue in annoyance. She may have a beautiful face, but her ugly character shows through in her expression.
Richard is gone now, and I'm done with you both. You have no right to say anything. Just leave.
At that moment, my husband, his face flushed red with anger, deliberately asked her,
I can't see the grandchildren. Where are they?
And with that, my husband went to check something, pretending to search around the house. Victoria seemed momentarily at a loss for words, but then she immediately started shouting angrily at me.
They went to a friend's house. What's wrong with that?
Stop lying. Were you not worried when a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old were gone all night? Are you even a mother?
Huh. How do you know about that?
They walked all the way to our house late at night. As I told this to her, who looked puzzled and astonished, she shamelessly responded with a brazen attitude.
Our daughter isn't cute at all, and the son I raised lovingly rebels against me. I don't need those brats. You can take them, but give me money. I want $100,000. It's not much, right?
She truly was the worst kind of woman. I felt boiling anger at the thought that my son and grandchildren had suffered because of such a woman. Too bad. You can't spend money behind bars. I've recorded our entire conversation.
Huh. You're so naive. I'll be released soon enough just for being a little harsh with the children.
It's not just about the children. You do realize that taking someone's life is a serious crime, don't you? And there's evidence. Actually, there was Richard's diary in the bag. And from Victoria's frequent outings, he suspected she was having an affair. On top of that, there was a report from a detective Richard had hired for investigation. According to it, indeed, his wife was cheating with a young man she had met at a pub. The same man who fled from the house. Additionally, the diary also mentioned, "I've been feeling my life is in danger." It seems Richard had experienced several incidents where he narrowly avoided accidents, such as almost being hit by a car while walking or nearly being pushed onto train tracks while on a platform. He suspected his wife was targeting him, and he had taken precautions and was preparing for divorce.
That might prove my affair, but it doesn't prove I killed Richard. It's just the ramblings of old people. The police have more important things to do.
Can you still say that after hearing this?
As I argued with Victoria, my husband appeared holding a surveillance camera he had found. The day before Richard passed away, he had installed a surveillance camera in the living room, as noted in his diary. Upon playing the recording, there was a conversation between his wife and the young man.
It went well this time. I pushed your husband hard down the stairs.
Thank you. Now we'll get a hefty life insurance payout.
Victoria turned pale, her lips trembling uncontrollably.
I just said that as a joke.
How far can you go with your lies? I'll bring all the evidence to the police and request a reinvestigation. Your affair partner might spill everything about you during questioning.
But...
Oh, by the way, Laura mentioned something like this. The place where Richard fell is a busy pedestrian bridge, and many cars nowadays have cameras installed. Laura suggested spreading the word on social media to see if there were any witnesses at that time. Victoria's eyes widened, and she looked visibly shaken, placing a hand over her mouth. However, she quickly changed her tone and began to apologize.
I'm sorry. I was threatened by that man. I'll give you half of the $100,000 life insurance payout if you overlook this.
Excuse me? You're not the beneficiary.
That can't be true. We made each other beneficiaries when we got married.
I told her that according to Richard's diary, the beneficiary had been changed from her to Daniel already. Richard had set up a trust system that allowed his children to receive the benefits once they reached a certain age, regardless of their current age.
That's ridiculous. It was a plan to get a large sum of money.
She collapsed on the spot, crying and screaming like a child, utterly miserable. We watched her coldly in silence. Afterward, both were arrested. Taking someone's life is a serious crime, and they are unlikely to be free for a long time. Even if they were to leave prison, no one would want anything to do with them. Currently, my grandchildren live with me. In fact, my daughter and her husband also live with us, supporting us, and they lovingly care for the two children as if they were their own. Emily, who used to be quiet, has started to open up and gradually began to talk more. I am determined to stay strong and see these children's happiness through until the end.